Attention passengers. This is your co-pilot speaking. Your pilot is black-minded, so you are not going blind and there is no power failure. You are merely experiencing the immense blackness of his proximity, and when you hear his voice, you and the cabin will get even darker than you are currently. We will be cruising at the speed equal to light, because the one other thing that travels equally fast is darkness. Your loved ones awaiting your arrival may not recognize you at first sight. This is normal. Simply tell them about the pilot, and they will understand. We will taxi to the runway now, so please buckle up and prepare for a high-speed departure. Thank you for choosing Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. We hope you keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Justice forever.
This is not even appropriate to start off with the peace greeting. Pardon the sounds of the ducks. Yeah, I know there are ducks in some parts of Saudi Arabia. There's actually a man-made pond that I'm walking next to, and that's where these ducks are sitting at. Look, it's not appropriate for me to sit up here and start with the peace greeting because I'm about to go in on a specific type of Somali woman. This type is the reason that Somali men of the diaspora are going to Morocco to marry, following behind African American men in that regard. I don't mean doing it because we did it, but rather having learned this from us. And I'm not saying this to shame them. Because the truth be told, they really, but more so than they learned from us to go to Morocco to get married, they learned from Moroccan women. That's really where they learned this from. They may have seen this happen in the diaspora, meaning in Scandinavia and in the Americas. That might be where they saw this pattern. And I mean the pattern in which African American men that were generally Salafi Muslims go to Morocco to find Moroccan wives to marry. And half the cases I know of involve black Moroccan women. That's the other thing people don't seem to realize. So this notion that we were just going to get, the light-skinned, straight-haired Moroccan women, that's foolish. Anyway, the thing I'm going to tell you all is that as regards this phenomena, the women have this thing, actually the culture has this thing called the soriyo. Now, when you get married in Islam, there's a dowry. And actually in fiqh, the dowry is something that the groom offers to her and she accepts or she does not accept. The three people that are necessary to agree on the marriage are the groom, the bride, and her father or another adult male in the family. That's the condition that is necessary. Extended family doesn't count. The community does not count when it comes down to that. It's not their place to approve or reject, really, unless they know of a really valid moral reason that makes either one of them unfit. And if they know of a reason that makes her unfit and they're going to object, then they need to make it clear they're objecting for that reason so as not to shame the male. Well, I don't have to tell you about the reverse because that's already known. The soriyo is some extra cultural baggage bullshit that these halimos are generally throwing up, and that is a gift for their mothers. My wife told me straight away, Black, I'm telling you, this is something in our culture, and I don't want you burdened by this. I just want the community to stay off my mom's back. She's not looking for this either. But I beat her to it and I said, if you're prepared to lie to everybody to get them off her back, then I'll do it, but on one condition. And that is that in 2 years, I will publicly on social media blast the custom of the soriyo, because it makes it difficult for these young brothers in your community to get married. On top of a dowry that the wife may accept, now there has to be a soriyo, which is customarily about $2,000. That does not make marriage easy. And if it doesn't make it easy for the men, it's going to make it difficult for the women. Now I know why your community has the problem that you told me that it has, which is very similar to the African American community. And now I'm glad to hear that these young brothers are taking the same solution that is similar to the African American community solution. I'm glad to hear it. Excellent. Good. Keep it up. Until the Somali women of the diaspora change and put Allah's revelation over the culture and actually appreciate you enough to allow marriage to be easy enough, they don't deserve you. They can say what they want about y'all being irresponsible, going to work and then sitting at tea shops with your friends instead of going home to help your wives with the babies and the chores. They can say what they want. I already know, actually, that it's really not that bad. I know that there are men who do this, but I also know that these men come from an era in which the women, your moms, would not respect them if they did a whole lot of housework, especially if other people knew they were doing it. I also know that they come from an era in which the women are in the homes, maybe in each other's homes visiting, and they actually like to not have the husbands at home in the early afternoons. I know this, so they can say what they want. I know that you may face trouble with employment. I also know that you, the Somali men of the diaspora, generally come in two types and not three. You are either seriously pious, you take this deen seriously, you are not effing around, or you are criminals and gangsters. I know that this tends to be a very wide dichotomy. Now, the spectrum does exist, but what I mean is that the bulk of you, the lion's share of you, fall in one of these two ends of the spectrum and not the middle ground in between. And the end, this is one case where I do actually like the end of the spectrum, one end of the spectrum and not the other. What I'm getting at is that despite this, however true it might be, these are not the reasons that they're making these things difficult for you. They're doing it because, ¿Cómo está capo? They're doing this because they're westernized. And Western women have this thing where they are socialized to where they must be difficult for men. They must be desired but not attainable. And that's what Mia Khalifa wanted. That's why she bragged and said, you know how many men I've wanted? I've never wanted a man and not gotten him. You know how many men have wanted me and not gotten me? Mia Khalifa, a dirty movie actress, had to say something like this. She had to say some dumb stuff like that. But then she lets a dog take a dump, picks it up with her mask and puts the mask back on. And she had the nerve to say something like this after that incident. Mia Khalifa, though she was never Muslim to begin with, still represents the mindset with which the Western Somali women are being brainwashed. I know this because of things that my wife told me. Now, I forgot that I was going to blast the culture of the soriyo, but now, 4 years later, I remember. So I'm going to say this. First off, F the soriyo. And don't you brothers sit up here and start trying to defend the soriyo. Don't you do it either. That is not a part of the revelation, and it does not make it easier for you to get married. And in the West, there are more of you to qualify for marriage than there are the diasporan women that qualify for it. And I understand why you wouldn't go back to Somalia to find someone. When you did, what did they do? They ran stories about a few guys that went and just disappeared on their wives after they broke their virginity. You know, a few dudes did this. Nobody knows where they are now. That means the community don't know. And you know, the story broke. Could have been 5 dudes that did this, and all of a sudden they start talking about it on news. But Rhoda Osman is someone about whom many of you in your community don't even know. She comes from your population, but she clearly broke away, and you all don't hear about her. Now, most of you don't hear about her. You got to run with FBA and ADOS folks to even find out about who she is and what she's done. And she sits up there and brags about how she lies and scams dudes. Gets a BBL just so she can twerk. Why? Because she wants to be desired and sought after, but not attainable. That's vanity. She was a basti niche from jump. How do you think she became a single mom, no marriage? If she was married, we don't hear about it. This is what's out there. And the thing is, even though most of the women do not go so far as Rhoda Osman, and they're not willing to be as bad as Rhoda Osman, one thing that we still know is that in your community, I know this, when a woman like Rhoda Osman comes out, the ones that do know about her start dropping their own bars. They start to worsen their behavior because they can say, well, I'm not as bad as her. If somebody checks them, they can say, oh, no, I'm not like that. I'm only doing this. I'm just dancing on camera, twerking and shaking my butt on camera because I want a few guys' attention. I'm just doing that. Look at her. She's practicing witchcraft and twerking in a bikini on camera. And she's into her own gender. Oh, that's real. And she scams dudes. She scams people repeatedly by blaming black men for things that they don't even do. Oh, yeah. And you guys know that too. You Somali brethren know about this. You may not know about Rhoda, but you may have seen that in the last few months, some of the women of your community have just gotten even worse, not gotten better. And you're wondering, where do they even feel this bold? Where did they get the boldness to do this? Well, they probably know about her. And they're just waiting on somebody to corner them so they can point to her and say, I ain't really that bad, am I? And that's because they want to be as bad as they can get away with. So they're just waiting on a way to get away with it. You have to deal with this mindset. And if you go back to Somalia, they're going to blame you then. Why couldn't you handle one of us that's over here in the West with you? Because you're a Western bitch, that's why. The minute you say that, they start shaming you. You have to deal with the same sign language we do. You have to deal with the same attitude in the West that we've had to deal with. And so I'm glad that you are going to Morocco and doing this. My wife's nephew did that. I never got a chance to meet him. And I give a shout out to him. What's good, nephew? If you're wondering, if you're a Somali man and you listen to this and you're wondering, am I discussing you or not? You're the one whose wife's aunt. You're the one who has an aunt living in Saudi. That's my wife. And then you have another aunt that's living also in the Middle East, in a Gulf country. Her husband's a police captain. That's you. Shouts out to you, bro. Congratulations, big lion. Liba. Congratulations on that wedding, man. And I heard about you pulling out the chair for your wife and treating her very well when you visited your other aunt in the other country. I heard about you doing that. Your aunt actually told your other aunt, my wife, about it. And I told my wife, well, he's doing that to her because she's treating him the way you treat me. That's why he can do that. So I'll let this be known, bro. I am, even though you and I never met, I'm behind you. And the only thing I think that Somali men in the West and the diaspora have been doing wrong is waiting this damn long to go to Morocco. I already know how your women treat you all. Believe me, I know. Because when my wife won't mistreat me, and she even said it. She even said, there are things that my people do that cause us to not deserve freedom and a better homeland to which to go. She said we got bad habits, really bad habits. The soriyo was just one of them. And I'm blasting that because how's that going to help you out? Half the time when y'all are getting married, these moms know certain things about their daughters and they just glad their daughters found somebody. They're not even looking for a soriyo, but custom and culture. Man, shuck this fit. And if you stand up to it, then of course the women are going to shout you down and shame you. And they're not going to listen. You can't even get the point across. You can't finish the sentence. And that's why I say they don't deserve a conversation about it. Leave their asses in the dust. And I'm saying this as a man who married a halimo, and I'm very happy with her, but she puts the revelation and the religion above the culture. See, God does not oppress us, but we oppress each other. And as a man that's been married to both and been happy with both a Moroccan and a halimo, and for those of you non-Somalis, halimo is the term they use for women. Since I've been married to both, and I am happy with the second one, and I still don't have anything bad to say about my second ex-wife before my current wife. I can tell you, you were doing the right thing. See, I was fortunate in the case of my wife. I was quite fortunate. And I do know that in general, women from Somalia will not treat us as badly as the Western sisters will. It's not quite that bad. It's still too bad for Muslims, though, on average. I do know that. And when they've come up amongst the, when they've come up in the West, in the diaspora, oh, they take on all that neck rolling, finger snapping, eye rolling attitude. I was in a group, Facebook group for Somali. Some of you might know about it. I'm going to put it on blast too. Nephew's Corner. I don't know what they're like now, and I don't give a fuck. When I was there, they were terrible. I got in because I was sick and tired of socializing with a bunch of pale-skinned Arabs that didn't really know that we were equal, didn't hate us, but they couldn't remember our equality. I was like, you know what? I'm sick of this. Sick of the stuff y'all say. And guess what? I thought about it and I figured, you know what? It's better I just go ahead and online socialize with some Muslims that are black and ain't gonna be racist. And guess what I found? A bunch of degenerate gynocracy. See, people could tell anonymous stories there. They might still be able to. They could tell anonymous stories over there. And this is what they wound up doing. They told these anonymous stories, not telling who they were, but they were posting them and they were all scandals. And most of the time, these were women. Dudes were usually posting about what they found out someone did. The women were posting about what they did, what their moms had done, stuff like this. What do I do? I don't know, bitch. Don't cheat on your husband with his brother. Fuck is wrong with you? Now your husband got a DNA test, found out that he's related to the kids, but he's not their father, and he thought he was their father. So he's asking you, so who did you screw? Was it my brother or my dad? Who you been screwing? And you sitting up here debating about whether to tell him it was consensual or you were pinned down. You sitting up debating this stuff. Are you debating, should I tell him the truth, that I cheated, or should I lie and say that he forced me? Oh yeah, ignorant stuff like this was going on. One man set up and said, I'm looking for a second wife. My wife can't keep up. She knows she can't. And they start dragging this man through the mud because he wants to marry a second wife instead of committing adultery. But then women confess to cheating and everybody's like, well, only Allah can judge you. That does not even sound consistent with Muslims. And yet here they are doing the same ignorant, sick shit that Western hyena bitches do. Because they became Western hyena bitches. And when I started to try to gently correct them and advise them, hey, look, we Muslim, we know better, let's follow the rules. Guess what happened? I got a phone call on Facebook Messenger one morning, getting ready to go to work. One of the sisters, friend of mine, said to me, listen, Black, they dragging you. For what? And she said, you know how you are, you're sitting up and telling them how they need to behave themselves and do like what Muslim women should do. It's like you're trying to simp for a Somali woman. And I was like, why the hell would I try to simp for a Somali woman? I see how they behave. That's what they thought, that I was trying to simp for a Somali woman. Why the hell would I do that? Well, they were bringing up featureism and texturism as one of their talking points. They were routinely bringing it up. So they assumed that because I told them I'm an African-American Creole, didn't hide it, that I was just trying to get one of them to change the features and hair texture of my lineage because I didn't like being of West African origin. See, Creoles, quiet as it's kept, Creoles are actually very West African. People don't realize that. Like we actually know the parts of Africa from which we come. Senegal, Gambia, and Mali primarily. The Wolof, the Mandinka, the Fulani, and the Bambara are our primary, and the Soninke, they're our primary ancestry. I meet someone from Senegal, I'm looking at a relative. He blurple, I'm high, barely yellow in the winter. I know he's related to me. He may not know until I tell him something. So we know this. It didn't make any sense, but that's what they thought. So for me telling them, listen, y'all got to stop y'all really got to tighten up. For me just saying this to advise them because they were scandalous by their own standards on social media. For me just telling them this, all of a sudden, I'm trying to simp to get one of them. I'm trying to simp. I have no self-love, no self-esteem, none of that. So I'm over here just trying to simp to get one of them all of a sudden. Man, how the hell you gonna sit up here and say something like that? These were some conceited, arrogant, presupposing bitches. So when I found out that they were doing this, that they were discussing me like in this manner, and I couldn't see it, but they were discussing me in this manner, I went back into the group, I logged in, and I let them have it. And I straight said, okay, see, at this point, you were hypocrites, and some of you were even disbelievers because you have changed the definition of what is right and what is wrong. You even try to change the religion. I tried to advise you about this, but now I'm not advising you anymore. F y'all. If you cannot take good counsel, if you cannot at least admit that good advice is good advice, then I hope you bitches burn in hell. And I bounced out the group. I remember a married woman at the time, nice lady, sent a message to me. She said, yo, Black, what's going on? What happened? And I said, well, you saw the kind of stuff they were talking. I had to point that out even to her. And she said, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, well, what did you think it was? And she's one of the well-behaved ones. She just didn't know that's why I was cussing them out. Here's the funny thing. This thing happened, and then shortly after I got that phone call, and I wasn't even looking to marry a Somali. Shortly after I got the phone call, guess what wound up being the case? I heard that somebody had been noticing me, and she's now my wife. That's how things worked out. Last Hajj, I was watching my wife perform her tawaf. I had finished mine already. I was sitting on the side. I was on the sides, in the area where people pray after the tawaf next to the Kaaba. And I watched, as well as I could watch through the crowd. It's pretty dense. I watched as she performed the tawaf, and I try to keep my eye out for her when she would disappear from view. I try to keep an eye out for her again. It was really crowded. But while she was performing this, let me tell you what, I had to call, not call, but I had to send a message back to the sister that called me to warn me that they were dragging me. And I had to say to her, listen, if you want, you can tell them it doesn't really matter. I'm just letting you know. I want to thank you for giving me that warning that that's how they were responding to the advice I was trying to give. I think they did not want me marrying a Somali because they think that, you know, Somali women look too good for a guy like me, even though they never saw how I look. It just so happens that a few days later, I found out that somebody had noticed me, seemed to have a crush on me. And now she and I are married. I'm watching her perform tawaf around the Kaaba right now as we speak. I could not have, you can't make this up. I could not have planned this. Thank you for giving me that warning, though. But the truth be told, I never planned to marry a Somali. I actually, at the time that you called, I actually thought that I was probably going to wind up with somebody from Southeast Asia. Because they seem to be the ones that are feeling me the most. I actually had come to the conclusion that any black woman that liked being black was not going to want me. That those two were not going to go together. A black woman being interested in me and also liking being black. That they would only want me if they really didn't like being black. Because I thought that's what the case was with my second ex-wife at that time. And lo and behold, here's a sister that, from the continent, that likes being what she is, likes being as Allah created her, and also finds me interesting. You can't make this up. I can't make it up. I'm not that creative. I want you gentlemen to understand that, see, I know as an outsider how nasty they can get, and I'm not even supposed to know. And a lot of this stuff I knew before I ever met my wife, and I didn't even tell everything that I know and everything that I learned. Because I was trying to keep, I didn't want her to be embarrassed by their behavior. Even though she has no reason to be, I still didn't want her to feel embarrassment about their behavior. So I kept it mum. Didn't tell her what I knew. I fucked the shuck up. But I want you all to understand that you're not doing anything wrong when you completely ignore the homeland to go find somebody. Because even if the women back home are better behaved, and they probably are to a limited extent at that, based on what you and based on what my wife has told me. But understand is if you're not going back home to find them, you're doing the right thing. Because if you do go back home and it just doesn't work out because she's got a mouth, because she's from home and you're from the diaspora, and she starts, derogatorily mocking you in ways she would never mock a true foreigner like me. Or ajnabi like I am. I'm really an ajnabi. You're a returnee. And the way they would mock you, they wouldn't even mock me. And when you have to deal with that and you say, you know what, man, shuck this fit, and you bounce out because that's how she is, guess what? or because you know that they actually will try to use you for a ticket out of the homeland. Call you an ajnabi or a fake ajnabi, a not real Somali. Whole time they're waiting on you to get them the immigration rights to go back to the West with you, even though that ain't why you were trying to go and where you were trying to go. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And when you do go back home and you got to deal with this and you say, man, shuck this fit, I'm out. Guess what? You actually are late going to Morocco. If anything, the only things you're doing wrong are that, one, you didn't go earlier. And not only that, you got to pay more to fly to Somalia or to any part of Black Africa from Europe or from North America. Now, I can tell you a money-saving trip. What you do is you actually fly, what you do is you fly to the north and then book a separate reservation to go from the north to one of the tropical countries. Actually, that's what you do. That's the best thing to do. Do it that way. Believe it or not. And let me know how that works. If it doesn't work anymore, update me, please. But yeah, they want you to spend more to go back to Somalia so that the women back home in Somalia can mock you for not being a real Somali because you haven't lived there. Yeah, can you imagine? You should have been going to Morocco. And here's the only thing you can do to step your game up, bruh, in the right direction. One thing you need to do. Ask those diasporan Somali women, where else should we not go to pick up wives? And wherever the hell they say you should not go, start there. And if not, pretend to, because that's what they deserve. See, quiet as it's kept, some of your dads aren't your dads. That's pretty rare, but it does exist. Some of your fathers are not your fathers. Your dad, your supposed father doesn't know he's not your dad, and you don't know. But sometimes that does happen with y'all. Just thought I'd let y'all know. The problem is that in the rare occasions when that is what's going on, they don't feel like they should apologize. They've got others surrounding them talking about, well, only Allah can judge, and everybody does something wrong, especially in the diaspora. That's the difference. So I hope that what I said helps. And I'm sorry that I don't have better news, gentlemen. I mean that. But you know what? You're doing the right thing. I know. And I hope that you manage to continue. I hope you manage to expand it exactly in ways that the halimos think you should not. Because Black American men are not the only brothers on the planet that have been pushed away while being the most deserving. No, it's been you too, gentlemen. You've had to face this too. I've seen the attitudes. My own wife's disgusted by the stuff she's seen at times. Now, she gets disgusted by some of the bad habits she's seen in the men as well, but she's been disgusted by some of the reactions, so I know what's up. And I knew about the stuff before she said it, before I even knew who she was. So I know you're doing the right thing. If anything, you're doing it late and you're not doing it enough. Step it up. Thank you for listening. And I mean it when I say I hope this helps. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-select male power, just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. I'd like to thank those of you who are flying with me first time. Thank you for flying first class with me. Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black. Why did I say first class? Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jet black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.